but I'm here today to give my plea of not guilty for my arrest in College Green on the 14th of November last year, where I was with about 1,000 people, but they decided I was the one that was not socially distancing adequately and was with a group of more than 2 people.
So tell me, Piers, why is it you believe that the police are always picking on you and arresting you?
They don't just pick on me, but they do pick on people who they regard as being organisers. And I think the reason is they think if they intimidate organisers, then other people will also be intimidated. But actually, it doesn't work, because people see that there's this injustice and carry on regardless. And my message is always carry on, because if we give up at some point where they think we'll give up, then that's the end. We have to go beyond where they think we're going to give up.
If you remember, back in Richmond, about 6 weeks ago you were arrested and Street Mike was there, and I interviewed you immediately after you was arrested. But one thing you said, it was the 11th time
That's right.
you had been arrested. Out of those 11 arrests, how many have resulted in court cases like this one?
Well, only 2 actually so far have resulted in court cases. The rest have been adjourned or dropped, or, well, we've had about 5 which have gone, 3 were dropped, and then we had court cases for 2. One was a no case to answer, and the other was an absolute discharge. So that shows the police intention is really to intimidate, when the law itself or the magistrates recognise that these charges are essentially unjust. I mean, they're not all going to recognise that, but so far we've had that sort of sense.
So what happens after today? So you'll appear before the magistrates, you will plead not guilty.
Yeah.
What's the process
well,
after that?
They will fix a date, and we'll take it from there. Thumbs up to Street Mike. Brilliant.
Thank you, sir. So that's Piers Corbyn now going into the court. So you're out here, you're raised. There's Piers now behind you. So if we look, we can see Piers Corbyn. He's now exiting the court here at Bristol. So this is Piers Corbyn. He's now exiting. Piers, good morning, sir.
It's not over yet.
It's not over yet. As normal, Wendell Daniel from Street Mike.
We're only part way through. What happened is we all pleaded not guilty or refused to plead or whatever, but they wrote down not guilty for all of us. And then I asked questions, were you there? And I said, well, I'm not going to even answer that question until we're served evidence from the prosecution. And then the magistrate got annoyed. She said, what, you haven't received your evidence yet? Because numbers of people have asked for the evidence and they haven't got it. So she told off the prosecution, saying they should have provided evidence before they start this, because we're pleading not guilty, but simply to a charge without knowing what the evidence is. So she's adjourned for half an hour to have a discussion with the prosecution on what they're going to do now. But, you know, it is completely out of order to bring us here without having given us any evidence. He says he has evidence, body-worn videos and stuff, and presumably notes from policemen, but none of it has been given to us.
I was always under the impression, Piers, on the days when I did my LLB at Birkbeck University, that there's rules of evidence. You have to exchange evidence in advance of a case like this. So you're telling me that the prosecution hasn't even exchanged with your legal team?
They're in a muddle, I would say. And afterwards, we 4 or 5, because one of them will have a meeting discussion. And you know, I have a solicitor, but I know he can't take a case without any evidence. So we will have a discussion and pool our solicitors' knowledge and expertise, including some common law expertise here.
So why is it with you, sir, that the criminal justice system always appears to mess up when it comes to gathering evidence.
It's all 4 or 5 of us in this case, but it's interesting. I think they often mess up. That is a fact. It's not just with me. It could be in my case, of course, that they're always looking for something else. I don't know.
So is it possible, Piers, that they may have continued if you did not request evidence to be presented to support their charge? Is true or not?
Oh yeah, if we hadn't mentioned we hadn't got evidence, the magistrate would have assumed we do have, and then proceeded. Where that would take us, I'm not quite sure, but you know, I've said I'm not going to answer any questions until we've got the evidence from the prosecution.
Excellent, Piers. Thank you very much, sir. Would it be appropriate to speak to your lawyer?
I would, but this is not my lawyer.
Oh.
No. He's another defendant.
Oh, you're defendant? I apologise,
My lawyer's
sir.
in London.
I'm Jonathan Trapman, the...
If I can get the microphone, please, Piers.
Sorry.
Let's go.
Piers knows our street mic loves perfect sound. Sorry, sir, I assumed, and assumptions are dangerous, that you were a solicitor of some form because you have a blue file in your hand. So I'm very observant.
Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Jonathan Trapman, the life and the flesh and blood man, and I'm representing here Jonathan Trapman, the legal person. And the reason that I've got all these bundles of evidence is because what is being transpired here today is an absolute travesty of anything we know as lawful. And on that basis, we were talking, Piers was talking earlier on about not being served that evidence. I actually asked, under Section 14 of the Magistrates Act 1980, that I retire from the court, as I would expect the others would retire from the court, because there has not been part of the process, and the important parts of the process have not been divulged to each and every one of us.
That's right, that's right.
And on that basis, I asked to retire in order to make, under the Court's Justice of Peace, to strike these proceedings out, because I had no knowledge of them, of these particular parts that were missing. And on that basis, there is no case to answer. I also made the statement that I plead neither guilty nor not guilty because of the very fact that there is no case to answer. And importantly, one of the things, wherever this goes today, one of the things that's going to be really important and telling in this case is a legal precedent that we have. And because I myself am because I've also made a declaration of the right to conscience, both in the police station as they were charging me, and also all the way down the line. And therefore, under my common law and everybody's common law right, there is no case to answer for the spurious little charge that they've actually invoked here. And on that, I can cite the legal case of Chamberlain versus Linden that actually allows for an individual, whether they've wronged another party or whatever, to claim their right of conscience. So there is absolutely nothing that they're going to be able to challenge. The police regularly do this. They bring this here, they don't show the evidence because they haven't got the evidence. They may have evidence of proof of somebody being there, but they haven't got the evidence of any wrongdoing because there is no wrongdoing because of that very precedent that I've cited.
If I could ask you in regards to that precedent, where did that precedent go to? Was it at a lower court, a middle court?
No, it was a high court.
It's the high court.
And it is a legal precedent that is absolute, because what it means is that everybody has a right to their conscience. Now, what I would suggest is that people go to www.freedomcycle.com, and there they will find the Declaration of the Right of Conscience and get it down, get it embossed on a card, carry it with you all the time, because whenever anybody tries to place their authority over you, and that could be the police, it could be anybody, you read this and it absolutely secures your right as a sovereign being to walk upon this earth, to talk upon this earth, and to have every freedom that you were given by God when you were born, and to enact that at every moment. And no one and nothing, not even a judge, a magistrate, can take that away from you. And that is the beauty of common law. What is also interesting is that as I'm a trustee of the pub, the People's Union of Britain, I can state categorically here today that the case against Hancock, Whitty, Vallance and Ferguson is now in the final stages of either today, tomorrow or the beginning of next week to have the court case numbered, and they will then be taken to trial on fraud, pandemic fraud. And that is wonderful. We've spent 14 months at least working this case. It is absolutely rock solid, literally waiting for the court number. When that is, it will be public knowledge. And you will find that none of the mainstream media will ever divulge that. They will have to, because they're also aiding and abetting a criminal fraud, and they will be, their heads are on the block anyway later down the line. However, for this one, this is the breaking news that every single media should be reporting, and they have no excuse. Once it's there, the case number's done. And to all those who have lambasted us and said that we're talking nonsense, People's Union of Britain, which is every single member of you are all a member of that. You are all taking this case of taking this criminal fraud down. We have now got to the point where we'll eventually be rid of this 18 months, however long it's been, fraud that is played upon the British people. And it's important that we're doing this here in the British Isles, because 2,300 years ago, the common law was born here. We've always had it. It's swept under the carpet after the last 1,000 years because the tyrannies that have been there have always ignored it because it doesn't serve their purpose. Today and onwards, we are going to take down this 1,000-year-old tyranny, and we're going to bring back to the people their rightful place of being under common law, the law of the land. No more admiralty, no more maritime law. This is the real law. This is our birthright, and this is what we shall endure. So this is just a little bit of a circus until then.
Last question, sir, and I see at the moment we're surrounded by officers who are listening intently and being educated by what you're seeing. But you said to Street Night that the magistrates has retired for half an hour. What do you actually think they're doing at this moment in time?
They're cobbling up all the information we should have had and giving it to us and saying, now you've got it. Well, which is complete, arse about tit, really, if you're going to use the vernacular. Because we're meant to have received that even before we received the
rules of evidence, exchange of evidence, of course.
So, come on, show me something that's actually lawful that you're doing, the prosecution. Show me it, show us all, because, at the moment, you're looking like Charlies.
Just so people know that obviously, we resist all their attacks and plead not guilty everywhere, not just me, but everybody, and we're standing together to say no to these unjust, they're just an administrative process which is against the Human Rights Act. So after this, we're all going to say no in the court, and they're going to adjourn it to something. But I'll let you know about some other cases going on. On the 20th of May, there's going to be a big jamboree case of me and a whole lot of others from Save Our Rights and Stand Up X and so on, are all on trial together, all with two charges, one of being present in not social distance, the other is organising. So they're after who they regard as organisers. And that is the 20th of May, be a very big case involving lots of people, so be there.
And where will that be held, sir?
That'll be, to my knowledge at present, Westminster Magistrates Court. I don't know what
running away.
And the second thing to know is there's another case happening in Leicester on the 22nd of June. For a number of us who, argument then is how many people were present on a tiny little demonstration. Right, and on your question of what I'm doing in London, as you know, we have I'm a candidate for Mayor of London, and we're doing very well. And the point about that is, we can actually win, because we go on the ground and working class communities are supporting us, you know, terrifically. Like we were on Thamesmead Estate, people knew about me, knew about us. They said, we are supporting you on the demands we have, which are, first of all, ending all the lockdowns and the COVID restrictive rules. Secondly, we're going to say to the NHS, and as Mayor I would have a chance at least to try and make them do things, that they can't anymore leave people with cancer behind, cancer and diabetes. We're saying that no serious illness should be left behind. So those first two demands are, one, save jobs, and secondly, save lives. Whereas Boris Johnson's policies are actually destroying jobs and ultimately killing people by leaving cancer patients on death row. This is utterly unacceptable. We've got a whole lot of other policies, in particular defending council housing and ending homelessness in London by taking over empty properties. The general thing we're saying about the NHS is we've got to put wellness before big pharma, and we need a restructuring and a new accountability in the NHS. And as Mayor of London, I would enforce these things, attempting to get the police to do things. I'd say to the police that they must carry out the Nuremberg Code, i.e. if they know of anybody in the NHS coercing people into taking a vaccine without warnings of what the dangers are, they are guilty of breaking the Nuremberg Code, which means a number of people should be arrested, including Matt Hancock. So Matt Hancock should be arrested. And with me, as Mayor of London, I would be organising legal process to try and do exactly that.
So my final question from Street Mike, sir. There's a protest planned on Saturday.
Yes.
Can you maybe inform people
Absolutely.
what is going to be happening on Saturday, because we're all looking for information.
One more leaflet on the
And you know, Pierre, me, Pierce, I like to ask good questions.
This is going to be the biggest demonstration London has seen this century. Yes. Hooray! We're hoping to have, well, I don't know about 1 million, but let's say...
We had 100,000 last time.
Let's say, well, if we didn't have 100,000 last time, we'll have it this time. And if we had whatever we had last time, we're going to have more this time. So go to central London, be there by 1 o'clock, and things will move on.
And specifically, where in central London are we talking about?
That will be announced at the last minute, but be in the central area, you know, anywhere between Hyde Park and Trafalgar Square. Look out. Look out for signals and go on your social media and then join the march, massive march. And at the end of it, we're intending to have an open mic sort of event in Speaker's Corner. Now that is very important because we know the police have been trying to harass people to prevent them speaking in Speaker's Corner. Now on the 20th of last month, we held a rally, a Let London Live rally there, and the police let it happen. So we re-established the rights to speak on Speaker's Corner. However, we know the police are trying to unravel that. So Haikuku and I today, but he's in London doing this, are going to be applying for an injunction in the High Court to say that the injunction to the police to say you are not allowed to attempt to harass and prevent us speaking, because that is contrary to the Human Rights Act, particularly at Speaker's Corner. And we're applying that we want this injunction to prevent them doing any harassment for the 24th and the following week end, which is the 1st of May, where we're going to have a big May Day festival.
Jamboree.
That's right. So what's that space? An injunction against the police brought by me and another candidate who's a local candidate in the central west area of London.
Yeah. But going back to, definitely final question, going back to why is it specifically that people are not told in advance exactly where? For those who don't know.
You mean talking about the demonstration?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, why don't you say at this time and date at this place?
If you announce where and when, the police will be there ahead. So, you know, we take the initiative.
So they monitor
Resist, defy, do not comply. Let's get in there.
So that.
You're right. Thank you, Casey.
Pierce,
Really good to
if
see
you take
here.
your microphone up, if not, that's contempt.
Oh, whoa.
If not, that's contempt of court.
That would be hilarious. Transmission of the court case.
And Street Mike will not be doing that. We comply.
Right, let's get in there.
Thank you very much, sir. So that's Piers Corbyn talking to Street Mike, and he's now heading back into the court. And there he is. So is Piers Corbyn now exiting from Piers? Well done.
Now, quite interesting stuff in there. They gave us all quite a large bundle of evidence, and it's explicitly stated in this that we were targeted. Not just me, but the others. This statement here, for example, from PC Benjamin, it says, it was decided by senior officers that he would be arrested, i.e. me. And then he says, I took the front of the officers and made a line walk to Corbyn. So they decided to arrest me and others before an offence, i.e. being within 2 metres of somebody, was committed. There's a number of redacted statements in this. I asked the magistrate why and what was redacted, and we did not get any satisfactory answer. 3 points I made to the judge, and well, others made other points, but one point I said at the start, or quite early on, was, do you have control over your own court, madam? And because I said there's no need for all this exclusion of people under arguments of social distancing. She said that she did have control over her court and was complying with these regulations. But it's interesting, she may have the choice not to comply. Right, the second point I said was I invited her to state that all these cases should be dismissed and there was no case to answer on the grounds that this in fact is an imposition of tyranny and therefore she should dismiss all the cases now. She declined to do that and said this is an argument under the Human Rights Act that you'll have to put forward when it comes to the full case, the full hearing, which is now going to be on the 3rd and 4th of August at 9:30 a.m. here. So we'll be here at 9:30 a.m. for the course to commence at 10. And it's anticipated will go on over 2 days, or at least a day and a half. So the 3rd and 4th of August. There's 5 of us who will be present, and my solicitor will make some important legal representations on the Human Rights Act then.
Piers, okay. Wendell Daniel from Street Mike, thank you very much for being outside the court and giving us this opportunity. Earlier on you said that once you've received the evidence, the perception, or it seems like decisions were made even before you were actually arrested. What does that say to you about the way the system works if decisions are being made to arrest you even though evidence has emerged that you were not complying, if you have to, with the relative rules?
That this country is sliding into tyranny, and it's tyranny being imposed in the name of a flu, which is termed an epidemic when we know as a fact there's no pandemic. There's not extra people dying in the UK world compared with any other flu. So we know there's an agenda of imposition of tyrannical rule and destruction of businesses in order to make way for mega corporations to take over businesses and to have a new world order, which has been spelt out by the World Economic Forum. This is not a conspiracy theory, it's what they say themselves. I'm standing for Mayor to put a stop to it and tell the police of London that they've got to no longer implement these laws, but the Human Rights Act and civil policing have to overrule everything they've said, and then we can get London back to work, we can save jobs and save lives.
We have now laid all the evidence papers and the complete prosecution against the four horsemen of the COVID apocalypse, they being Mr. Hancock, Mr. Ferguson, Whitty and Vallance, the four members who have, well, all of which were colluding to create this pandemic fraud. Now, okay, so we ourselves, for our little infraction, alleged infraction of being present, talking freely and everything else in Bristol last November, we are now told that this is going to be handed firstly to the CPS and then to go to trial on the 3rd and 4th of August. Now, a couple of things here will make this, and I'll make this prediction. I don't often make predictions, but this is not going to go ahead. Firstly, because the CPS will throw it out, as they've thrown every single case out up to now, every single case. We are no exception. We are just merely four people who have come to Bristol last November to be free, talk free, walk free, and then told that we're arrested under a specious, they call a law. None of this has been law, and it will be proven in the pub's case against the four horsemen. And that we are expecting, because the case and the papers and everything else and all the stuff has gone down from Marylebone Magistrates Court, has now been given to Bromley Magistrates Court, and Bromley handles private criminal prosecutions. That is what they do. So therefore, being in Bromley means that every box has been ticked. Our case is solid enough to be heard in the High Court, which will most probably be in the Old Bailey, with 12 jury, men and women of good, and we're expecting the case number to be issued at the end of this week or beginning of next week, which will mean that then a preliminary trial will be issued. Each of those four will be issued their summons. If any one of them or all of them do not turn up to court, that is when they will be warranted for arrest for not turning up. And it will continue. So this will all happen. And this will all happen before the 3rd and 4th. So that's why I say, pretty categorically, we're not going to be going ahead with this thing. This is just circus for the people and for anybody who likes to support the prosecution in what they're doing, which is also BS. And I can say categorically that the police, whether it be Metropolitan, whether it be here, Avon and Somerset, the offenders who are colluding and aiding and abetting in this whole pandemic fraud will be, as they very well know, committing a criminal offence, as anything aiding, abetting a criminal, anything criminal is becoming criminal yourself. It's also to be noted that yesterday the ICC, the International Criminal Court, was served notice of and permission to grant prosecution of the British government for genocide. Because one of the things that we will be certainly taking this private criminal prosecution towards is, after the fraud, we will be then going for treason, and we will then be going for genocide and mass murder. So this has only just started, but what it's going to do between now and, let's say, our alleged case of the 3rd and 4th is it is going to mean that the country will wake up. Those of us who have colluded, those of us who've just accepted the mainstream media's propaganda bullshit they've been putting out for the government, they will then start waking up. Not everybody, there will be a lot of cognitive dissonance, but what will happen is that this whole criminal pandemic fraud will collapse under its feet.